Awesome. Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us today. I am Judy Teven, and with me is Simone Jennings, and we are excited to be with you today. And we're equally as excited to show you all how to use Classworks to streamline your SST support, your support team meetings.
That's right. So, what are we going to accomplish today? Well, first, we'll define what a student support team or SST is, and then we'll discuss its purpose. Then we'll explore a sample meeting agenda in action using Classworks data. And then finally, we'll take a look at some data dilemmas that you may encounter. The student support team or SST is responsible for reviewing data to determine if needed for a student. The SST also reviews what adjustments need to be made to the intervention itself during the intervention process. Now, this team may be called something a little different in your district or your state. They are sometimes referred to as problem-solving teams, PST, or even child study teams. The goal of the SST meeting is to look at specific students' progress once they are in the RTI MTSS process. Now, this team ensures that each student is receiving the interventions that they are needed just for them, specifically for them, and that they're responding to those interventions. So who is on your student support team?
Yep. So because an SST meeting is about a specific student, the attendees may vary slightly. So it also may differ depending on whether you're discussing a tier 2 or a tier 3 student, but meeting participants will likely include classroom teachers, right? Classroom teachers are boots on the ground and are very close to the students. They offer insights into student learning, behavior, and home situations. Now, counselors and school psychologists offer a more objective perspective while bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience. Now, your reading coaches and interventionists have likely spent some one-on-one time with the student, allowing them to share their observations. And administrators are highly valuable at these meetings, right? Offering experience and ensuring that processes are followed. And of course, when discussing individual students, the parents or the student caretaker should also attend. And this team typically meets monthly to discuss student progress. This meeting should be relatively short, but long enough to review data and establish the next steps. So target the meeting for about 30 minutes.
So now that we have our team members selected, how do we prepare these educators to be good contributors to your SST meetings? So first, you want to make sure that they understand the data. Your team members should be very comfortable with Classworks reporting and data. So if this is in question, you want to schedule some professional learning time to make sure that they understand the data being collected and that it represents what it represents for that student. And then next, you're going to make sure that they understand their purpose. I know that this feels like a given, but it's really important that team members understand that this isn't just the gateway to sending students for special education testing. They are problem solvers, consultants, and curriculum experts. So their role is to offer support to the teacher to find ways to support the student. And lastly, members should have strong interpersonal skills. Involving parents in this process is highly beneficial to student success, but it also requires a little more expertise in regard to handling a variety of situations and personality types. So preparing your team in these simple ways will really broaden your team's ability to impact meeting efficiency and value. Now, what does this meeting actually look like?
That's right. So next we want to look at a sample agenda. So before the meeting, the referring teacher will complete like a pre-meeting form and bring any relevant work samples and other available, any other diagnostic data. So here is an example of a schedule. There you go. So to get the meeting started, the facilitator begins by making introductions and sets the purpose of the meeting. So the purpose may be to review data on a student being referred for support within the tier process, reviewing data for a student who's been taking part in intervention, or perhaps a student being released to tier 1. This should be made clear by the facilitator, but really only take a few minutes. Now, the first order of business is for the referring teacher to describe the student and share any relevant data and describe the interventions that have been attempted to date. So make sure that the data is parent friendly so that results are really clear and easy for them to understand. So next we want to move into clarifying questions. It's time to ask questions, right? All members of the SST brainstorm what types of future interventions are needed and how they should be administered. What intervention does the student need and how will they receive it? For example, using Classworks individualized learning or an additional small group time with an interventionist. So how will the interventionist and progress be monitored? So for example, Classworks progress monitoring and individualized learning scores actually could both serve as a monitoring tool. Be sure to reflect on the whole child. We actually are going to say that a lot today. So tap into any other factors that could be impacting the student. It's important to review any Classworks observations, goals, and the goal tracker that the student could have set. So then we want to review intensification variables. So you're going to make an instructional plan to intensify. Some things to keep in mind: changes to the intervention or staffing needs. Does the student need more intervention time itself? Or should it be delivered within a smaller group with less students, right? So thinking about when students work on Classworks in class, is it ELT, the extra learning time, or additional time with some additional support staff? And should the intervention be more targeted? So think about when teachers might want to add an additional custom assignment to Classworks in order to target instruction. So using skills-based probes for progress monitoring in Classworks is also a way to target intervention for that monitoring because it's going to change that intervention in that way. So then you want to prioritize and plan. So now you're really looking at logistics, right? The SST determines exactly how progress will be monitored, what type of data will be shared with the school psychologist, and the schedule for doing so. And then, of course, we wrap it up. The facilitator wraps up the meeting and directs the next steps. So you really want to, this is what's important here, is to make sure that everyone understands their role and actions and make sure that parents are involved in the next steps. Classworks, intervention, and progress monitoring really provide the perfect data for an SST meeting as students work on their intervention masteries tracked, instruction informed, and growth monitored. So let's connect all the dots. So using the agenda that we just walked through, let's walk through some specific examples, right? Using Classworks in the student detail screen.
That's right. So first, we're going to start with Ari Moody. Now, she is a 4th grade student, and she's being referred for academic intervention in math. Now, in this meeting, we have Mr. Moore, who's the assistant principal, and he'll be the facilitator, Ms. Smith, who's Ari's teacher, Ms. Carl, the counselor, Mr. Hartley, the school interventionist, and Ms. Levine, the teacher rep. So Ari's parents are not involved in the initial referral meeting, but if the team decides that Ari needs intervention support, then her parents will be invited to all the subsequent meetings. Now, after Mr. Moore makes introductions, Ari's teacher, Ms. Smith, shares the data she's collected and any other relevant information. So we're going to start with describing the student and sharing her data. So in Classworks, Ms. Smith shows that Ari's universal screener math scores indicate that she falls in the 17th percentile and is performing below grade level. Now, Ari works on Classworks in the classroom. Her universal screener results assign skills from 2nd grade level and up. Now, she's mastering most of the previous skills and is currently continuing to work on 2nd grade skills. Her Classworks IOP mastery in math is averaging about 87%. And Ms. Smith has noticed that Ari's performing poorly on her math work in class, and she's falling a little bit behind her peers, and she's feeling frustrated. So Ms. Smith shares some work samples. In class, Ms. Smith has moved Ari to a table group close to the front. And she's given Ari some extra time and hands-on materials to complete assignments and some additional time to work on her Classworks IOP. So now it's time for the team to get to work. So let's check back in with our questions. What does Ari need? Well, based on all the data presented, Ari would benefit from Tier 2 support. Ms. Smith has differentiated in class and Ari is not responding to those efforts. So how will she receive the intervention? The intervention includes becoming part of a pullout group to work with Mr. Hartley, the interventionist, and Ari will continue to work in Classworks in Tier 1 setting as well. How will progress now be monitored? Well, Classworks progress monitoring, along with individualized learning and mastery data, will serve as evidence of intervention progress. Now, we also don't want to forget that we want to reflect on the whole child, right? Judy said we're going to talk about that a lot today. Is there anything else affecting Ari's academic growth? Well, let's check out her observations. As we read through those observations, we see that Ari has shown some frustration when working on a math project, and she's given up before she's completed it. So when we check on her goal tracker, we see that her teacher has helped set a goal to complete work on time this week, and that's a great start. So now let's set these supports in motion for Ari. How will Ari get more intervention time? Well, the pullout group time will be a combination of independent work in Classworks and small group targeted instruction with Mr. Hartley. We're going to add this into her time with Ms. Smith, and Ari's going to have now over 90 minutes of math intervention time each week. Now, how are we going to monitor Ari's progress? Now we assign progress monitoring. If you click curriculum sampling, you'll notice that her performance level is indicated at 3rd grade level now. And when we click start, Ari will receive a probe assessing her growth within 3rd grade level each week. What will the intervention actually be? Well, Classworks is determined to be the instructional intervention with close teacher monitoring, conferencing, and reassigning instruction as needed. Additionally, Mr. Hartley and Ms. Smith will both watch the intervention data closely in order to add skills that Ari is struggling with to their small group time. Lastly, how can we address the whole child? To build confidence, Ari's teachers will help guide her to set new goals to help with organization, as well as strategies to manage her time.
That's right. So again, where do we say we go next in our meeting? It's prioritize and plan, right? So logistics. Mr. Hartley will pull Ari on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 45 minutes, and Ari will take her progress monitoring probe on Tuesdays while with Mr. Hartley, right? So should Ari be in a smaller group? Well, Ms. Smith is going to be sure that Ari works in a smaller group during small group time in class, in addition to the extra intervention time with Mr. Hartley. Ari will continue to participate in Classworks while in the regular classroom. Mrs. Smith's class works on their Classworks individualized learning every day, as you can see on the schedule, for 30 minutes. Then during this time, they work on goal setting, their individualized learning, and their small group time with Ms. Smith. And again, don't forget about Ari's SEL needs. Ms. Smith is going to conference with Ari and have her set a new goal in Goal Tracker, where she'll complete 4 classwork skills at 80% mastery over the next 2 weeks. That's really going to build her confidence, right? And then for the next 2 weeks, have Ari create a goal to complete and turn in her work on time. And really achieving these goals over these short durations will build her confidence and really get her excited and engaged. So Mr. Moore wraps up the meeting, making sure that everyone clearly understands the next steps for Ari, and Ms. Smith will reach out to Ari's parents and invite them to the next SST meeting to discuss Ari's progress and share the intervention plan.
That's right. So we just walked through an initial meeting for a student being referred for intervention support. But what does a meeting look like when a student has been working in intervention and the team is monitoring their progress? Well, now it is time to meet Audrey. Audrey is a 6th grade student who's been receiving Tier 3 support. Let's see how Classworks data plays a role in her SST meeting. Now, in this meeting, we have Mr. Moore, who is the assistant principal. He will be acting as the facilitator, Ms. Poole, who's Audrey's teacher, Ms. Carl, the counselor, Mr. Alexander, Audrey's parent, and Mr. Hartley, the school interventionist, and also Ms. Levine, the teacher rep. So first, we're going to describe the student again and share the data. So after Mr. Moore makes introductions, Ms. Poole shares that Audrey has been very excited about her progress lately. And she's been participating more in class, which is great, but still doesn't seem prepared to attack new skills and concepts. So viewing Audrey's placement data on the progress monitoring screen, we review her last universal screener data. And now this shows that as a sixth grade student, she's ranked in the first percentile rank. Jumping into the student details, we see her progress monitoring is targeted using skills-based CBM probes, assessing algebra on the fourth grade level. And as we scroll down, we have some notes. She showed some frustration when taking the probe. So Ms. Poole shared that she's also making sure that Audrey now takes her probes when she first comes into class to avoid interrupting any other assignments or projects that she's working on. And as we look further down, we see the cumulative question responses for Audrey. Overall, her scores are high, but not necessarily consistent. The team clicks into some of the incorrect responses to see what Audrey is missing. Ms. Poole identifies using variable as an unknown to review in small group with Audrey. Now, overall, the progress monitoring graph depicts success. Using the 4-point rule that I'm sure you've heard us talk a lot about, this is basically if data shows 4 points or more above target, you'll make an instructional change. Ms. Poole determined that it was time to move monitoring up a level. Audrey has 5 data points above 80% mastery. So Ms. Poole assigned her skills-based algebra probes at the 5th grade level. Now she's hopeful that this will help prepare her for new concepts in class. Now, although the team is tracking Audrey's academic progress, it was shared in the last meeting that based on Audrey's social emotional survey, there were many areas that she felt were very difficult for her. And because of this, Ms. Poole has worked with Audrey to set goals to connect to those areas and continue to move her progress forward, also ensuring that she builds ownership of her own success. So now we're going to review intensification variables. We're going to set these supports in motion for Audrey now. So the team is very encouraged by her progress, and Ms. Poole is making all the right decisions to help accelerate Audrey's skill level and closer to her actual grade level.
Yep, her individualized learning will be updated based on those new probes, the new progress monitoring probes at that new level. So the 5th grade level probes will inform the individualized learning, turning off any skill that she's mastered and assign new ones that she's ready to learn. She will continue working independently on individualized learning, of course, in her current classroom schedule. So let's prioritize and plan. The team determines that no additional intervention time is advised. Her Classworks time in Ms. Poole's class totals 60 minutes of instructional time with time set aside on each Monday for Audrey to take her progress monitoring probes. And this schedule will stay in place. So Mr. Moore wraps up the meeting, making sure everyone clearly understands the next steps for Audrey.
Now, one thing that really stands out to me as the team reviewed Audrey's data is that they didn't jump to make a lot of changes or additions to what was currently being done for Audrey's intervention, right? It's important to note what is actually working, keeping processes consistent and ultimately giving it time to work. If a change is warranted, then we'll decide on the change and then put it into motion. One change at a time ensures that we can differentiate what's actually working and what isn't working in the intervention.
That's a really great point. And then, of course, data SST team meetings may not always go as smoothly as these that we've just walked through. Often there are some very challenging decisions that need to be made. The most common SST decision is tier assignment or movement. So for example, when a student is not showing growth in tier 2 and has a need to move to tier 3, then it's appropriate to identify the student's lowest performing level area and any prior progress monitoring, then assign a skills-based probe in that area to target that intervention. Now, earlier in the session, you heard us refer to the 4-point rule, and this rule helps us determine when to make any kind of an instructional change within intervention, and thus a change in monitoring. If the student has 4 points above your target line, make a change like with a higher intervention and a higher monitoring level. And likewise, if 4 points are below the target, then make a change such as lowering the intervention level, the monitoring level, and possibly the tier level as well.
Yeah, that's right. So if progress monitoring data is showing that a student is in decline, the team may look at shifting progress monitoring types, which will in turn shift the intervention instructionally. And if a student is not showing growth with skills-based probes, which are global indicators, curriculum sampling can step in and give the student a wider variety of questions in a probe. Conversely, if a student is being monitored using curriculum sampling probes and is showing signs of frustration or issues with test taking stamina, switch to a skills-based probe, which are a little shorter and are also more focused. Now, another reason to make a shift is for IEP goal tracking. If an IEP goal is growth focused, use curriculum sampling to closely monitor student progress and have a clear goal set. For example, here you see a student starting at 460, which is about mid-fifth grade. And looking at the annual target rate of improvement, we see that after 12 weeks, the student should be at 510, which they have already met. By the end of the year, they should meet or surpass 520, which is indicating performance at the end of 6th grade or the beginning of 7th by the end of 36 weeks.
That's right. So now when we consider monitoring a student with behavior specific goals for PBIS, use observations and goal tracker to track student success. For example, use observations for student check-in, check-out each day if they're part of that process. And this may be printed for documentation needs too. Observation ensures that staff from anywhere in the building may provide input to student behavior, actions, or even success to give those kudos, right? Now, the social and emotional survey is the perfect catalyst for goal setting. Review results to see the competencies in which students are struggling. Focusing students' goals in areas that they find difficult sets the stage for continued dialogue and focus on SEL areas and really gives students a framework of support to really grow in those areas.
Yep. So we're going to recap now. SST meetings are where clear, easy to read reporting really does shine. So it's really important to communicate student data, but also share the actions that teachers and staff have taken to impact student progress. This creates a clear understanding of how a student is doing and what's been done to actually help them, ultimately informing the decisions impacting next steps for students. Using the student detail screen ensures that you have all the data that you need in one place with ease of movement between data discussions. A wide variety of data is reviewed in an SST meeting. This data needs to paint a complete picture of what the entire whole child, right? The whole student. And Classworks data gives you insight into the whole student to better determine progress and, most importantly, the next steps for student success. So thank you guys so much again for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your time today. We do have a few minutes for some questions if any have popped up. I think Joanne's going to help us with that today.
I am. We have a couple questions about the recordings. We started a little earlier today than we were on for yesterday. And so that's one. And the other one is Thursday is a holiday. So the question is about recording sessions on that holiday.
Oh, yeah. So everything will be recorded, but it will be all sent out at one time after the fall summit is completely done. So look for that in the following week or two. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline will be, but it will be a follow-up to that. And we'll also have like a survey from that and, really to get your feedback about topics that you want to hear more about and topics that you enjoyed, that type of thing.
Great. That came up quite a bit in chat. We also had a couple other questions that were sent directly into me. And one of them is they didn't not everybody knows we have this SE survey. So they're interested to know how they can access that.
That's great. Yep. So if you are a teacher, it is actually your district that will make a decision to do that. So if you're interested in the SE survey, please reach out to your principals and some of your district level leaders. They will make a decision to turn that on. And then your students, and it is right currently for 4th through 12th grade, we're going to do some adaptations for it for the younger students, but 4th through 12th grade, and it will be under assessment, and it'll just be there for the students if that once that's turned on at your district level. And just so that you know that the SE survey is in Spanish and in English and has read aloud capabilities as well.
Great.
The district has said they are not going to turn on that survey at this time for everyone.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a district decision. I think we've got a couple people from multiple districts on this morning. Yeah. And then,
I'm sorry, just to clarify, it will be for the public schools of Robinson.
okay. All right. So we had one other question come in, and that was about preparing a team. So the question is, how can I get my team more familiar with Classworks data?
Sure, I can take that, Judy. So if you just need a little refresher, you can schedule a Classworks Connect session. And now those are free virtual sessions that are really short, and they just cover the topic of your choice. So whatever you need in that particular session. If you need something a little more in depth, then you might want to consider scheduling a professional learning session with your curriculum and instruction specialist. And you can do that by contacting us at hello@classworks.com, and we can discuss your options on that at that time.
Great. Yes, and somebody just hopped in, just wanting to know about a makeup, and no, but the sessions are recorded and they will be sent out to the registrants after the end of the summit.
Yeah, and just so that you guys know, I think that's yesterday's start time may have thrown everybody off. So the rest of the first sessions of the day will be at 8 Eastern, right? 7 Central. So for the rest of the week, except Friday, which is going to be like a customer roundtable kind of session, like a working session. And I believe, do you know what time that one is, Joanne, by any chance?
I have it. Hang on. That one is Friday at 9 Eastern.
At 9. So it's definitely different. Yes. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys then. But we will be sending these recordings out.
All
And
right,
thanks
well,
everybody so much.
Thank you so much.